shut it down, but a lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things, but they want open borders. They want men playing in women's sports. They want transgender for everybody. They never stop, and they don't learn.
Of course, President Trump speaking about the government shutdown that went into effect at midnight. Here shortly, we'll see how some Americans are reacting and some of what is expected next. And later, now that October is finally here, Fat Bear Week 2025 has come to an end. After seeing a record amount of votes, this year's winner has been announced. Oh, and you can bet that we're excited to talk about it.
And right now we're taking a live look at a Miles City where the sun is starting to rise. The clouds, though, it's pretty thick, but overall we're expected to see pretty pleasant conditions throughout much of the day, and those details are coming up.
Wake up, you gotta rise to the sun, and here it comes, it's time to make the best of what you got to give. It's all about rising, and I wanna be there.
Oh, welcome to Wednesday, everybody. Alongside Chief Meteorologist Tracy Smith, my name is John Martin, and I'm excited about Fat Bear. Fat bottom bears, they make the rockin' world go round, and it's so exciting.
Did the bear you choose one?
Listen, I like to, when I get cornered about my my opinions about voting, I like to keep that very reserved and to myself. I don't want to alienate anybody, so I can't talk about whom I voted for this Fat Bear. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that my bear did not win.
Oh, no!
I voted yesterday in the final countdown, but that's okay. This one was, they were both well-deserving.
Yes, they both are very, very good eaters. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. First, though, a lot of folks getting out the door. What under the forecast want us to quit talking about fat bears? So let's talk about it, Tracy. What can we expect weather-wise?
Right now, we're seeing a mix of dry conditions out of central Montana with western and eastern Montana looking at some passing showers. We're going to take a closer look at what's going on in eastern Montana first, as these rain showers are starting to exit across the border into the Dakotas. We're just seeing a little bit of pockets of light rain and a couple rumbles of thunder. Otherwise, in western Montana, we're looking at those light rain showers now moving more to the east of the Missoula-Kalispell area, and even our little hints of pink are starting to diminish. We were looking at the potential for a little bit of a rain-snow mix for some of our more mountainous areas, but most of that is turning over into rain. Of course, if you're headed out the door this morning, kind of give yourself a little extra time, especially if you're traveling through west central, northwestern Montana, some of our more mountainous locations, looking at the visibility dropping down to a mile due to some foggy conditions. Now, out of western areas, we are looking at temperatures a little on the cool side, especially out of Kalispell and Butte with the upper 40s. Otherwise, we're ranging between the low to mid 50s out of Missoula, Great Falls, Helena, and Bozeman. Moving into central eastern Montana as well as northern Wyoming, temperatures a bit more into the upper 40s out of Lewistown, upper 50s out of Livingston, Cody, Billings, mid 50s out of Miles City, upper 50s there out of Cody. Daytime highs overall are going to be a little more seasonal for western Montana as we hover around the 60s, but still seeing above average temperatures out of central and eastern Montana, even with our settled cool down throughout the day. And of course, coming up in your full weather forecast, we're going to go over some of the potential for rain, how much you can expect, and if there's a potential for snow in the forecast.
Tracy, thank you very much. Of course, it's on the minds of many right now. The government shutdown is now officially underway. Democratic and Republican leaders failed to agree on even a short-term deal to keep the government fully funded past the current fiscal year. The 55 to 45 vote fell short of the 60 needed to pass. As of now, it's unclear how long the shutdown will last or how widespread its impacts will be. Earlier, the Senate also rejected a Democratic alternative bill that would have averted a shutdown. That measure would have funded the government through October the 31st and included an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies and money to offset Medicaid cuts from President Trump's big, beautiful bill. The Senate is expected to be in session later today when it will vote again on motions related to these same stopgap funding measures. It is worth noting that Senator John Thune said that it is possible that the government could reopen as early as today, depending on how the session goes.
Democrats may have chosen to shut down the government tonight, but we can reopen it tomorrow. All it takes is a handful of Democrats to join Republicans to pass the clean, nonpartisan funding bill that's in front of us. And I really hope, that some of them will join us to reopen the government, resume bipartisan appropriations work, and get back to the business of the American people.
On the other side of the aisle, some Democrats have been expressing their concerns on what this shutdown will mean and how it will impact things on a national level, but also to people individually.
What Democrats have been asking for is simple. Work with us on reducing the harm to health care in this country as a result of the policies of the Trump administration. There's going to be a shutdown tonight. I am afraid. I think it'll have a real impact on our communities, on our states, on our families.
Well, this is the first government shutdown since 2018, with the government partially shuttered for about 5 weeks amid disputes over funding President Trump's proposed U.S.-Mexico border wall. With that shutdown now in effect, Center for Western Priorities says the National Park Service intends to keep national parks open with skeletal staffing. Center for Western Priorities says it's indicated that the Park Service will drop from 15,000 to just over 3,000 employees, covering more than 400 National Park Service units across 85 million acres of national public lands. It's also reported that the Bureau of Land Management intends to designate employees who process oil and gas drilling permits as essential workers to continue work despite the lack of funding. Along with this information, the executive director of Center for Western Priorities shared in part, quote, "This awful situation is President Trump's dream for America's public lands. Exploit what you can and trash the rest. America's public lands and the people who care for them deserve better," end quote. Well, this morning, we want to take some time to look at the prevalence of those living with disabilities right here in Montana. According to the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, there are more than 81,000 adults in Montana who live with disabilities. Of those, about 35,000 are not in the labor force. 45,000 are in the labor force and working, and 1,800 are in the labor force but unemployed. To help those with disabilities, the city of Billings is taking action to make its streets more accessible. Justin Dubale reports on what these improvements can mean for those living with disabilities.
According to the Montana Department of Transportation, this intersection right here, where King Avenue meets Maloney, is the busiest one in the state, and it's gotten even busier with ongoing construction. While daily commutes might take a little bit longer, the work being done here is appreciated by those living with disabilities.
It allows the disability community the same access to the community that everyone else has.
Through a gas tax collected by the state, the city of Billings is given $250,000 every year to complete ADA upgrades throughout the Magic City. City engineer Mac Fogelsong says this year that funding has gone towards implementing well over 100 different ADA ramps across Billings.
Some of the old historic ramps might be kind of in the middle, and they sent the pedestrian off into the intersection at an angle. We go in, we just bring it up to current standards.
Jed Barton with the disability advocacy group LIFT says that they have worked with the city on what projects are needed for those living with disabilities. He understands not everything can be done at once, especially with a limited budget for these projects, but he appreciates the work the city does and hopes that they can keep collaborating in the future.
ADA compliance is a great thing, but it is sort of the minimum of what accessibility can be, and we appreciate, the city meeting the minimum, and we always look forward to opportunities to help them even improve further.
Fogelsong says this kind of work leaves him and his colleagues with a sense of pride, knowing that they're helping people navigate the city easier and safer, and says projects like this are made possible through those making their voices heard.
Periodically we'll get calls from those folks, and that's another way we identify some of those locations. Along
with new ramps, Fogelsong says upgraded electrical, pedestrian poles, and pavement markings are being done as well for improved safety. Montana DOT says they expect to be working on this project on King Avenue throughout the fall. For a link to check updates on this project, you can follow this story at nonstoplocal.com. In Billings, Justin DeBell for Nonstop Local.
All right, Justin, thank you very much. Of course, honoring our veterans for their service and sacrifice is a top priority for the state of Montana. With that said, a new $1.5 million expansion grant from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has been approved for the Western Montana State Veterans Cemetery in Missoula. The grant will provide funding for 300 pre-placed crypts, 800 chambers for urns, as well as roadway enhancements, landscaping, and irrigation. The VA will also be reimbursing the state approximately $270,000 for other costs. Well, new numbers show that hundreds of veterans in Montana are experiencing homelessness. Because of this, the Department of Veterans Affairs is investing millions of dollars to help. Joey Taylor has those details.
In Montana, the latest HUD count shows 168 veterans experiencing homelessness, but the VA says that number may not always be visible. With Montana being a very rural state, the homeless population is often out of sight. However, the VA tells me you won't always find veterans in tents on the street. You'll actually see them in campers or deep in the woods. The VA says veteran homelessness has dropped by more than 52% since 2010, but the need here in Montana remains significant. To address that need, the VA just awarded nearly $13 million in grants to 2 organizations serving the state. Volunteers of America Northern Rockies will receive more than $10.9 million, while Veterans Inc. will get nearly $1.8 million. Throughout the fiscal year 2026, those funds will help provide veterans with housing, healthcare, transportation, legal assistance, and other resources. Nationwide, the VA is investing $818 million into its Supportive Services for Veteran Families program. The goal, keep veterans in safe, stable housing, and for those already experiencing homelessness, to find them permanent homes. In Great Falls, I'm Joey Taylor, NonStop Local.
Well, Joey, thank you very much. Turning to a safety alert now, the Custer-Gallatin National Forest team is sharing a notice of there being an increased amount of black bear sightings near and around Ashland Ranger District campsites. The team took to social media to share the news Tuesday evening, noting that these sightings are particularly dangerous given that bears are in their peak fattening phase as they prep for hibernation. And speaking of these rotund ones, if you've been voting throughout Fat Bear Week, you're probably curious as to which chunky beast walked away with the Fat Bear 2025 crown. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a drum roll? Wow, that was, we have to work on our drum roll, everybody. That was just disappointing. But this is not disappointing. The answer is bear number 32, Chunk. Chunk buried the competition after a record-breaking week of public voting. Chunk, who looks like can do a mean truffle shuffle himself, had more than 96,000 votes, while their competitor in the last round stocked up another 63,000 votes. Chunk actually dethroned Bear 128 Grazer, who has held Katmay's Fat Bear title for the past 2 weeks. At one point, Chunk even suffered from a jaw injury. As the results show, nothing could slow down this MVP's passion for salmon snacking. All right, that is the most important news that you're going to hear this morning, everybody. It is 6:42 on this Wednesday. Stick around, much more to talk about, including an extended look at your forecast with Chief Meteorologist Tracy Smith.